we talk about this on the episode too. We've been kind of busy exploring and actually creating and building out a Bitcoin native project over the last couple of months, basically, which is sort of we've finally got to the point where we've launched it. But that'll be interesting to dive into on the episode. We've been obviously we'll talk about 2025. Such an exciting year within Bitcoin as far as like the price has gone crazy, hasn't it? Or 250,000 at the moment. USD price, is that right, Chris?
Just around there. Yeah.
Well, that's what it was supposed to be. But no, it's been an interesting year. There's been a lot happening, obviously, in 2025, and even just from a mindset point of view as well. Like again, if you've been in the space for a while, you get used to these kind of periods where Bitcoin maybe doesn't behave as well. It never behaves as expected, but it might surprise you. It might bore you. It's one of those things where it's a long-term play and you have to have the right mindset. And obviously with Emerge21 over the last year, like we founded Emerge21 back in October 2024. The concept of what we were trying to do is, educate people around Bitcoin and have that really low time preference mindset on why this is such an important concept. And over the long term, what it's going to do for you, for your family, for your communities. But it's been an interesting year generally, but Chris, what's your general take? What's in a sentence? What does 2025 from the Bitcoin context? Give us a sentence. Put you on the spot.
You don't put me on the spot there because I haven't thought about I haven't thought about this. In a sentence, like it's been a series of like Bitcoin through its history of predictions, which very rarely come true, and 2025 is no different. I think big expectations just never played out, and that's all right. That's fine. I don't know, that'll be the end of the one sentence kind of summary, but in saying that, again, I'm always a glass half full person in general, but especially when it comes to Bitcoin, because I've done that much research on it and understood it very well. It's got a great setup as well for the future now. It is more established. That's the one people like. I know maybe hardcore purists will see it as maybe not the best thing. Like one of the main things I always want is most of the Bitcoin and self-custody at an individual level. I know that can't continue forever. Big corporations, big countries, nation states are going to get into this space, and that has happened as such in ways this year. So the corporate adoption has been huge. I'm no expert in on-chain analysis and stuff like this, but following some of the guys who show this is that there was quite a lot of OGs, whales from 2013, 2014, 2015 that accumulated quite a lot of fortune over the years and decided to cash in. That's normal. Like I don't see that as any, and that's all right. They're completely entitled to do that. They may regret it in future years, but probably not if they've got that size of balance. So yeah, it gives stability. It's set up very well for the future. I think it's definitely got that whole overturn window where it's more accepted in the public eye. I think a lot of the noise has been diminished in terms of this is not a legitimate asset. So overall, setup as well. Price didn't reflect, I don't think, some of the relentless buying as well that you see, offset by some of the OGs that have sold, like MicroStrategy, Metaplanet, ETFs have all relentlessly bought throughout the year still. So yeah, probably the only downside of 2025, and I like to be not trying to be balanced, but I like to be balanced in this as well to give the downside. There probably has been more coins moved from individuals to institutions, but again, that's naturally going to happen. The percentage is still very small overall, and the vast majority still lies with individuals and cold storage, which is great. But yeah, that trend is probably going to continue. I don't know how vicious or rapid that's going to happen, but yeah, corporate adoption, hedge fund adoption is fully in place now.
Yeah, I suppose with the bigger institutions buying, it's hard to know exactly what's going on from like a normal person sitting watching this from the sidelines, so to speak. You never know what's going on behind the scenes, but on face value, looking at many big companies, even small businesses that are now adopting Bitcoin as a reserve asset on their balance sheet is growing, and it's growing exponentially and will continue. And the more people that understand Bitcoin, it's the same, message. The more you understand it, the more your conviction grows around it. And when you weigh everything else up and what's going on with global macroeconomics, but it's a big topic to try to digest as an individual. And you have to just basically your followers on X, or with ourselves trying to explain what's happening, or dive into what our opinions are on things. You got to follow the right people along the lines of what's happening, but make the decision for yourself. But that does come with an understanding of certain concepts. But from a retail, like even just from a retail point of view, I feel, and I don't know if you've noticed it, Chris, as well. Like there's less talk around Bitcoin from friends, family. Even when Bitcoin was going up to 120, 126,000, it was surprising to me where there wasn't more people asking me about it compared to maybe previous years. But have you noticed that yourself? From an individual retail point of view, or do you feel retail has been generally ignoring or just not really paying attention?
Yeah, definitely. And again, I think it is to do with price appreciation and maybe expectations set. Like a 10x in a cycle is not good enough for Bitcoin these days,
Mm.
even though it blows every other asset out of the water. And again, you look over the last 4, 5, 6 years, it's still the best performing asset out of anything. Maybe bar Nvidia. In terms of an individual stock, which is one stock out of how many companies in the world that are public. So it's still the best performing asset, but definitely retail have not been at the table. I said before, I think sometimes you see that like the media can basically determine how much a topic is talked about. The US have said they're going to move towards a Bitcoin strategic reserve. BlackRock are obviously accumulating. Like whenever you understand a finite asset like this and you want to accumulate as much as you can, you play everything down, accumulate in the background, and then ramp it up again. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see this kind of media-driven hype at some stage. Whenever, again, you can't say that you have enough Bitcoin, but when they maybe feel that they've accumulated a sizable chunk, that'll come on again. And again, that might sound a bit conspiratorial on my behalf, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility that these big institutions are saying, "Look, play this down at the minute. Like, let's
Mm.
get as much as we can in the hands of, say, the US as possible." One thing you said there as well, Alan, is like a lot of the markets move through institutions, through sovereign wealth funds, through nation state accumulation, and we've seen that 100% in 2025 through gold and now silver accumulation. So it tells you, first of all, that the macro setup is rife for, like, really set up for a Bitcoin like asset, for scarce assets, for commodities in general. If you look at commodities, they've been performing unbelievable. Obviously, the right commodities. Um, so that happened, and you would expect Bitcoin to really take off during that year, but it hasn't been as fancied as some of the more traditional assets. I'm going to say traditional assets. Bitcoin's only got a 16, 17 year history. Gold, silver, thousands of year history. It's trusted. And it has been the central banks, not retail, that has been accumulating that. But also, if you watch the chart of gold and silver, they spiked. If you look over a long enough time scale, 10 years, it's a very short spike when you think about it. And my thoughts are generally this will happen to Bitcoin as well, especially because it's a limited supply and it's only a matter of time before, again, that kind of squeeze happens and you get another pop up. It happens in Bitcoin. I don't think many people are talking about that. I think people are, and we'll get into the cycles as well and how they played out. But there could be a pop here at some stage as well, where you just say, well, where did that 40% leg up come out of over a period of a couple of months? And before you know it, it's I know 40% from here is probably just at all time highs, but I mean even larger than that. I don't know when it'll happen. 2026 will happen this year, will happen next year, will happen the year after, will happen multiple times over those years, possibly, but it will, in my opinion, happen as well. So yeah, you've seen it. You've seen the reason why gold and silver have popped. It's because there's uncertainty around the world, and that's what Bitcoin was built for. So I have no doubt that just over a matter of time that's gonna kick off, and the same thing's gonna happen. It has been dwelling at the minute, but that doesn't last for too long in this space.
Yeah, and it happens quite rapidly as well. It hits you by surprise. And again, it's the time in the market as opposed to trying to time the market. If people are trying to invest or trade and do various things, that we've all done in the past. But the more you become in the space within Bitcoin, and become more, I say, convinced within the actual space itself why Bitcoin's here, you're not going to take that risk. So it's a very it is volatile. It's always going to be volatile, and it's unpredictable. But it's a long-term play. That's the key concept. And then you're mentioning cycles as well. It is, I suppose we could officially say the 4-year cycle has broken. Looking at what's happened recently and well over the course of the last few weeks, especially with the year end, etc. What's your take on the cycles now, Chris? As far as what's happening, how it's playing out, potentially what's going to, well, again, predictions within this space. It's you can't really predict very to a certain degree of accuracy, but the cycles themselves. What's your take on it?
I'll try and be brief on this because I want to hear your thoughts as well, because we haven't actually discussed this, mainly because it's just officially, if you want to say, based on a calendar year, broken now, whereas we don't have that green, 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 red, which we normally have. We've had green, green, red, and what's next. But I think like there's ways people follow cycles too. So this calendar year cycle is definitely broken. People still talk about the 4-year cycle based on halving dates, based on the last all-time high, the last all-time low. There's still some cyclical behavior in there, but I'm glad that one where certain traders will trade based on nothing else, nothing fundamental, but the fact that this has happened 2 or 3 times in a row, I think it's a bit daft. But I'm actually glad that it's broken. That we've finished the year. I'm not glad that we finished the year in a red, but it's not been an obliteration year as well. Like, what is it? I don't know what it ended up, 6-7% down, single figures down,
or something like that. Yeah.
But when you offset it against gold and silver and stuff like that, it's had a pretty per year. But again, the 2 years before that, it blew everything out of the water. But how does that set up for the next couple of years? I think it's pretty bullish that trend's gone, that people don't have an expectation that it's just going to draw down on this date. Or sorry, it's only going to pump in the Q4 of a following halving year. That I like the fact that it hasn't followed that, because it doesn't make much sense to me. It doesn't make sense from the halving perspective at the beginning. I think also we got a new all-time high before the halving last time, so did the halving really have that much effect on supply anymore? Was driven by other market conditions. So there's a lot on that, but again, I'm not a fan of the cycles. I actually wrote about it before and said, look, this is to do with supply and demand at the beginning, but that will fade out over time. I actually thought, and I've said multiple times on this, that I think there's probably between 1 and 6 more cycles left that's going to be as rigid as that before. And I didn't know which one, but whether this is finally it, which I think it is, because as a data point, it's a red year officially on a year that's always been green and extremely green. Yeah, I'm glad, and I think it's better for Bitcoin in the long term. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, like I think over the last like 3 or 4 years, I've just tried to simplify everything, because there's a lot of narratives around the cycles, the reasons behind what's happening in Bitcoin, and there's a lot of noise. And I think with institutions coming on board as well, there's even more noise now, because you've got all these analysts from fiat world, making predictions and coming on board, jumping on X, and stating what their opinions are, which is perfectly fine. They've got different backgrounds, people from different experiences. Coming into the space is a good thing, it's healthy. But from an individual perspective and my own perspective, I just tend to ignore it now. It's simple for me. It's if you can try to just accumulate and own more Bitcoin this month than you have the previous month, then that's the winning strategy. And it's tricky, like for everybody coming back into fiat world. If you're obviously working, you've got your job, your business. Times are tough for everybody. It's there's a lot of obviously with inflation, things are going up in price, business expenses, rates, rent, everything that you're having to deal with on a monthly basis. It can be hard sometimes to continue to accumulate in Bitcoin. And I think everybody's probably in the same position. You can never own enough, and you want to own more, but you just got to pace yourself. You got to, this is it's a long process. It's a slow game. You got to just, as I say, simplify things from my point of view, and just ignore much of the noise, and just, have your DCA if you have that, and just try to accumulate more over time. And for me, you can just peacefully, blissfully just ignore what's happening from a cycle point of view as well. Just just do your own thing in many respects, because it is. But the cycles, I think is broken. Obviously, well, it is technically, but also the dampening effect of -6% over the course of a year. The volatility has reduced substantially over the last couple of years. That'll probably continue to happen as well over time. So it's just it will take time, but it's the cycles. It's just unpredictable, like many of the things within the space. So I think it's just focus on what you're yourself and try to just keep accumulating as much as you can, or as even as a small amount every so often. Just continue with that.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of other things that we need to cover in 2025 as well. Topics that people will only listen to. The dampening volatility is one of them, for sure. Is that a good sign again? Like we've seen a drawdown of a certain amount. Is that counted as the bear market? And again, you're getting more. Again, you're not getting a 10x over a 4-year period. You could get, I suppose, a 30% increase every year, and that's another prediction piece that people are banking on. Bitcoin's going to give you a 30% return, CAGR every year, and it's not every year; it's on average. Like that's the whole point of CAGR, compound annual growth rate. But it's an average over time. It's compounding, which would be massive if it does. But you do have to be a bit patient in that. The other topic then is probably the treasury companies. Really underperformed this year. I think they are down quite a lot, even if Bitcoin isn't. I think that's still experimental in ways. There's going to be some of them are going to get it very right. Some of them are not going to get it right. Some of them will probably change their strategy, but this will be a test of who's in it for the long game, who was in it for a short game, and who was in it for for decades or whatever. So those are also two interesting topics as well. And we can give maybe more thoughts towards the end of the show on what the next couple of years look like. But any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it depends. Dynamics about what your business model is. Like if you're a trading company and you're profitable and you're putting Bitcoin on your balance sheet, even a small private company doing that, like that for me, that's the play. Other companies that have started up purely based on becoming a Bitcoin treasury company, but they've got nothing, kind of substantial in the background that's driving that company's revenue. It's a tricky one in that respect. Like there's smaller based companies with a small revenue stream, trying to acquire lots and lots of Bitcoin, which is fine as well. But again, it's very
MicroStrategy, what you're saying there.
yeah, it's a very fluid. There's a lot of different angles to come at these things from as well, and you can argue and reason, behind one thing and another. But it's just to be honest, the more you think about it, sometimes the more of a headache it brings from me anyway. It's like it just gets overly complex, and then it's kind of it's given me a lot of comments and feedback around these companies as well. I get the kind of feeling around like 2017, 2018, even just comments people have been coming up with about sort of they're living in hope that they're going to get a quick return over the course of the next couple of years. And then if things go bad, it's still they're like, oh, it's okay, we'll hold on, things will be fine. Everybody's living in hope, and to a certain degree you do, but there has to be a foundational element to these companies that provide you stability as opposed to relying on the Bitcoin price to drive your lifestyle or whatever it may be. I think you got to get real and practical within this world, and especially the way things are changing. Bitcoin is your long-term savings platform. That's your wealth builder, but businesses have to you have to provide value. You have to provide some form of service or value to people to actually generate revenue over the longer term as well. So it's a strange one.
That kind of dives into what MicroStrategy's doing. I don't want to make this a MicroStrategy show. I actually want to pass on the topic at the minute, but they're providing a service of dividends payments and credit instruments to people that will give them that stability as a savings account. So, like, is that competing with Bitcoin as a savings technology? Not as a technology, but as a savings service potentially. But in my book, no. Like from a fiat mindset, yes. If you can get 10% a year, 11%, I think STRC is floating around at the moment. That's great in terms of fiat returns, and it beats the hurdle rate as it's called. but it's not enabling everything else that comes with Bitcoin. It's not the end game. It's an intermediary. It's not going to give you freedom to transact those services. It's not going to give you permissionless money. It's not going to give you. It's not going to destroy the central banks.
Mm.
It's just a yeah, as I say, interim step on the way to a Bitcoin standard, and
Yeah.
is my view overall.
It's a vehicle to play with and to test, and all these things are like
It's
test based.
interesting. Yeah,
It's
it's
interesting.
interesting.
It's like it's a project based, and obviously something we'll talk about now as well with what we're doing ourselves. But people are. It's good in a way. Like obviously with Sailor MicroStrategy, like they're trying to build their ecosystem on Bitcoin and around Bitcoin. They want to try to be a Bitcoin business, Bitcoin native products potentially as well down the line. But that's again from what we're doing, what we have from Emerge21 over the last year, we're talking to a lot of people, like talking to individuals, business owners, trying to educate around Bitcoin and get people onboarded in many ways. But we've found like one of the key elements, and that's one of the pivotal points of people's understanding was actually interacting within Bitcoin, and that would be via Lightning, so receiving Sats or sending Sats, and that's something that we have kind of really thought a lot about over the last few months in regards to like how do you actually get people into Bitcoin, onboarded onto Bitcoin without having to spend, months and months on end trying to, educate them and, watch hours and hours of content. And we developed something that was, well, it's sort of a fun way to engage with Bitcoin. Like, how would you describe it? Because it's something that people can, jump on and experience Bitcoin from the outset, as opposed to have to go and spend, months on end trying to understand what it is. But that experience of using Bitcoin, especially over Lightning, that the concept between this project that we've been developing. But like, how would you introduce the
Yeah,
reason behind why we created this?
yeah, it's kind of familiar territory. So yeah, the whole thesis, the whole background, and what you're saying is like we educated people since October 2024 in this, but what we imagined, what we would do, and how it actually played out was two separate things. So the education side of things, we create a lot of content and we use it still, but we don't use it as much as we thought. A lot of people who approach us are people who've already uh, kind of been sold on the Bitcoin idea, but they haven't taken it to the next level. So they either want to say, well, I actually want to integrate this into my business for payments, or I want to store this, in a hardware wallet outside of the exchanges and stuff like that. So the education side of things, we've created lots of content. We use it, as I say, but not as much as people have wanted to take it to the next level through payments or self custody. So we've put together a good self custody package and show people how to do that. But once we show people the Lightning experience, basically how to use it and how like a lot of people didn't actually know about Lightning as well. They're looking at it as store value only. Then we've opened people's eyes and that. Now, there's lots of use cases out there of how to use the fiat rails for a transaction. So we've put together a very simple, fun kind of way of uh, using the Lightning network. And the whole thing was we want to strip out the fiat elements as much as we could now with limitations, because we want this to be a compliant product. But it's basically making it seamless, as frictionless as possible. And it actually is when you actually use it. So yeah, we've developed a product where you can use Lightning to buy um, a ticket, a virtual ticket, to enter a competition that can allow you to win a certain amount of Bitcoin. Now, again, this is all voluntary. We don't push this on people. It's completely voluntary. There are loads of fiat versions out there of this already, competition sites and stuff like that. Uh, and it's very minimalist in reality, but it's all based around Bitcoin and Lightning. There are educational aspects around it as well, where even to enter the draw, you'll have to show knowledge of Bitcoin. Again, very frictionless process still, but at least it gives a bit of education. So, Alan, anything you would add to that? The kind of the reasons why we started this, but yeah, it's all around like getting people hands on with Bitcoin. Like, what is a way that we can interact with? How we can have something that resonates with a lot of people, that's simplified, that they've seen before, not shipping a physical product, but yeah, a very seamless experience for people using Lightning.
Yeah, it's a concept of that getting that first experience without again spending months on end being educated around it first of all, but it's the experience in doing that really galvanizes that kind of thought process. Well, I want to know more about what this is, and that's what we find when people actually get a Lightning transaction, they inevitably want to know more. They want to learn more as well, and you're meeting people where they're at. That's a common phrase used in Bitcoin. How do how would you describe Bitcoin to someone? You got to meet people where they're at. So we wanted to create something that was potentially borderless, global, without friction, and without having a physical product or meetup required to actually, potentially onboard someone onto Bitcoin. Now, obviously, you meet people where they're at. We had to look at sort of popular culture, what's happening, what are people, what industries are people really kind of interacting with or resonating with, and how do people get involved with companies. And from my point of view, like just over the last few years, I've noticed personally myself, there's been a lot more companies advertising these draw platforms, these fiat draw platforms and competitions. Win a house, win a car, win a cash prize, etc. By entering via this method. It could be a text, it could be on an online radio, or sorry, a radio message, or the radio station advertises the prize. So the concept of thinking, well, could you actually build this natively on Bitcoin? Can you use Bitcoin only? Can we sort of force people in a way to have to use, well, not force people, but enable people to use Lightning as the only one of the only methods of entering the draw? And we've created this based around that concept. And there is, from a compliance point of view, we spent a lot of time, like you could launch something like this underground where you're trying to go under the radar, but we wanted to bring this as far as possible to the masses where, as I said, retail has been pretty absent from Bitcoin over the last few years. How do we try to onboard, the next 1 million people from the streets, effectively from the grassroots level? How can they get access to this? How can they get access to Bitcoin? And we all know as Bitcoiners, Bitcoin's available to everybody, but not everybody realizes, and the vast majority of people do not realize how to acquire or how to actually interact with Bitcoin. So I think this platform itself, and from the outset, and you had this initially, Chris, as well, when we first started talking around this, you're maybe a little bit hesitant around, well, maybe we don't, I'm not too sure about draw platforms or competition platforms, but it brings people on board in an interactive process, an interactive way, in a very straightforward way where they can actually use Lightning firsthand, and then the chance of winning an extra amount of Lightning, or sorry, extra amount of Sats, or actually winning a Bitcoin prize at the end of it, is an incentive for people to use it as well. And it's no different from draw platforms. And we've constructed this in a way that it's a skill-based draw where people have to actually, there's a barrier to entry here. It's not just, buy a ticket. It's not just a lottery process. You have to actually go and, spend time thinking around what is this skill-based question. And I'll go through the site here now briefly, Chris, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
go for it. The one thing as well, just to mention, is like we could have done this through fiat raise as well, and made it very easy and say, look, we're going to give away Bitcoin here, but if you pay by Revolut or pay by Cash App, whatever it's going to be, then you get a ticket, and we'll figure out the Bitcoin afterwards. We might pay you in Bitcoin prizes, or sorry, cash prize equivalent afterwards. But we've chosen, and I know it'll limit it, but this is the whole point of adoption. It'll limit it by not having that fiat rail, but it'll encourage more. If they want to win these prizes, then they'll have to use Bitcoin. So we've stripped out all the fiat options. Now we may bring something in at a later time, or a way of doing that. But the whole core thesis around it is that we want people to interact with Lightning. So you can't buy a ticket without having a Lightning wallet and using Sats, and you can't get a prize without having a Lightning wallet or a Bitcoin wallet if the price is big enough. So an on-chain address. So that, like, the money grab part of this would be just open it up to everyone and try and do it, and then advertise all the other fiat things as well. So Bitcoin's a side project, and you do the cars and houses and whatever to advertise, but this is solely focused on Bitcoin. And the intention of it is that you cannot get through to purchase a ticket and get that invoice and get that email without experience in Lightning.
Yeah, that's the thing. It makes people experience it from the first principles as well, learning it, how it works, how easy it is, how seamless it is to transact on it. But it's not Yeah, it's something like with by doing that as well. Like it's more difficult for us in a way, just using this specifically built on Bitcoin on Lightning
That
currently,
was
because
fun.
uh,
That was fun building it.
it was fun building it, yeah. But
Yeah,
it's
about
getting
everything. Yep.
people to actually partake in it, and it's that lightning, there's a barrier to entry that's there. Now compliance as well over
Mm.
fiat rails, we could easily build this out, and many people have built sites that are compliant. But from a Bitcoin only perspective, there's been a lot of barriers to navigate as well for us to try to build it around what fiat rules and regulations are, but specifically having this as a Lightning Bitcoin only platform. But it's a very like anybody can go to the site 21stacker.com and have a look around. We welcome anybody's feedback on it as well. But the first draw is currently live, which we're calling our Genesis draw. So I'll pop into the actual draw itself. So you can have a scan off the site. You simply click on the button to enter the draw. The draw actually is taking place now on the 21st of January. So entries close at 7 p.m. That's London time or Dublin time. So there's a few days left there currently. We'd expect, trying to get people within the draw itself. There's different. If you look at the current draw platforms and current sites, it's usually within the last few weeks or days potentially, or hours before people actually start entering. So it'll be interesting to see as this project develops, the actual interaction and the amount of people that actually come on board and enter currently. But there's a skill-based question there currently. It's how many Bitcoin will there ever be? So I won't give away the answer, although you have to answer it correctly to get through. And you can
Yeah,
buy.
but those questions as well, they'll vary over time as well. I think for
Yeah.
most Bitcoiners, this will be a simple one for them. But again, this is the Genesis draw. We want as many people on board as possible. But over time, they're going to get more maybe more challenging, more educational. And again, you can go and do your research, but that is the whole point of this question. Like, who created Bitcoin, for example, like as a question, and somebody might not know that. They might be on like the sound of Bitcoin from an investment standpoint, or they want to win this prize, but they might not know. Like, and that's not obvious to everyone. Again, a lot of our listeners it will be obvious to, but that'll be a starting point of going, well, actually, they might have to go into Google and why is this, a Japanese name? Like, what is that about? And who is this person? What do they look like? And that starts a whole train of thought as well. So, yeah, this question is important, and it might be, will evolve as part of the quiz, the draw prize as well in the competition. But yeah, the whole point is to try and at least figure out some basics on Bitcoin before you enter the draw.
Yeah, and it's there too as well. Like they have to answer, you have to answer the question correctly. So we can't accept payment, or we wouldn't accept any payment for entry until the question's answered correctly as well. So it's a barrier to get through to the process of entering the actual draw itself. Again, from a compliance method, I would just mention as well, there's a free postal route, which requires a physical sending of a physical postcard with the actual written correct answer, personal details, etc. on the card, which has to be in place for us to be compliant again within the different geographical areas for this type of draw itself. But yeah, you simply click on that. It'll take you through to the actual checkout page, which explains what you've just purchased, and then just proceed to checkout. And we've designed the checkout in a way that it actually creates the actual dollar-based fiat price as well. Again, another compliance reason, but ultimately it gets people that idea of how much they're actually spending in fiat terms. And then before checkout, you just have to enter your username, or you have to enter your email address to register, and a password, which will populate. And then your first name, last name, and then the area that you live in. So it's just a matter of entering your region, or the place of residency. There are certain regions we cannot operate in just due to compliance regulations around the globe. So we have it in our terms and conditions. If you're living in an area where we can't operate, then unfortunately you can't enter. But ultimately, by entering your location, that'll keep everybody right. And then you have the option of entering your mobile if you want updates as well. And then our checkout partner within 21Stacker is with Zapright as well. So as I say, quite a few people that have already purchased tickets and got onboarded have said that it's such a seamless process, and Zapright makes that seamless as well. I can't actually go through to the next screen from this point really, because as a founder of the company, not allowed to enter the draw, unfortunately, which is a shame. But anyway, that's just part and parcel of what we've created. And then it's simply just click the terms and conditions box, which you can read as well by clicking on the highlighted terms and conditions text there. And then
But in general, once you hit that pay by lightning, Alan, like that's more or less it done.
yeah.
You either copy the address to make the payment into your Lightning wallet, or the easiest thing to do is scan the QR code. Once you do that, you'll get an invoice and an email and everything, and that's kind of wrapped up. Like it is so simple. And then you'll get notifications as well around when the draw's about to happen and things like that. Will we talk about the draw mechanics, Alan, or was there anything else that you wanted to finish off on that piece there?
No, it's fine. Yeah, the draw mechanics would probably be a good option. And we've built this like the homepage as well. Again, feel free to scan it yourself, have a look around. There's little kind of sliders here on like potentially odds per number of entries that you create per draw. So it kind of breaks that down as well. We'll mention this afterwards as well about the partner program, which is quite a good incentive for people also. But yeah, draw mechanics, Chris, if you want to lead with that.
Yeah, just very high, like obviously very high level. We wanted to keep it similar to some of the Bitcoin elements that exist at the minute. So obviously it uses cryptography, it uses hashes. So at a very, very high level, we produce at the start of every draw. So once it goes live, we produce a hash. So that hash is a number that can't be changed, can't be modified. It is what it is. It's a long hash that can't be modified. It's set in stone, and we publish that publicly so that people can see it. It means that we can't modify it then afterwards to try and change the outcome of the draw. So that's one aspect of it. So having a hash beforehand. Yeah, and it's down here below in the competition details for anybody to see. So it's the Genesis draw hash, and that will remain the same before, during, after the draw, and anybody can always validate that. But the beauty of this and what we're trying to do with the draw mechanics, and we've tested this to death at this stage, is that once the draw closes, we freeze the ticket list. So everyone who's in the draw, say for example it's full, we know how many tickets are in there, but everybody's got their ticket number. We'll say these are the entries that are in there. So 2,100 tickets for the first one. If they fill, we freeze that ticket list. If it's not full, so say only 1,000 out of the 2,100 full, then we'll list out each one of those tickets, and we'll convert that to hash as well, so that you can actually do the same thing. You can see what the hash is of the draw freeze ticket list, and you can replicate that exactly on a SHA-256 converter. So basically, if you put in the ticket numbers, you'll see that hash. The third element of it then is that once the draw closes, we take the first block after Bitcoin block was drawn after that close time. So say, for example, it closed at 7 p.m. Tonight, this evening, then the first block after that, whether it's 1 second after 7, 10 minutes after 7, 20 minutes after 7, we all know on average it's 10 minutes. So we'll say 10 past 7, that draw, that block produces a hash as well. We use that hash in it. That's something that we can predict. We can't influence. We can't modify. We can't tamper with at all. So we use that in our draw as well. So we take the pre-commit hash, which we've done publicly, and we take the hash of the next block. We combine those together. We run some very generalized random number generator calculations, which is very transparent. We've got a place in the site for this, and it'll produce the winning ticket based on the number of tickets that are in the draw. So it'll basically scan across and say, yep, this is the number that it produced. This is the ticket that is drawn, and that's all transparent on the site. So we've got a full section, a verify section on that to show exactly how it's done. So overall, we're basically putting out a pre-commit hash before the draw closes that we can't modify, and we make it public. We use another set of public data then, which is the block hash. We combine both those, do a number calculation that's very transparent, and that will produce the winning ticket. And you can recalculate that and regenerate that, and run it through your AI models or whatever to show that it's exactly sound and it works perfectly. And we'll have a winners page then that will display that afterwards. One of the key things that we've done as well, again, we've probably gone a couple of steps further than this than most people have in these kind of draws, is that we wait for 6 confirmations after the block has been produced to make sure that there's no reorg within the blockchain, which can happen from time to time. Maybe the first or second block after that, but up to 6 blocks, it is more or less set in space, set in time forever. So we built that mechanism as well. So putting all this together has been it's been challenging, but it's extremely robust and extremely transparent to make sure that we can trust this draw as much as you can, and it's reliant on your public data that's out there on the public blockchain.
Yeah, the good thing too is it's been an interesting project to develop out, but also like the fact that the whole six confirmations that was based on feedback from the community as well,
Mm.
from a certain individual who mentioned that, and it's something that we'd overlooked initially. But yeah, it's trying to make this as robust as possible, provably fair and transparent, and Bitcoin offers and brings that in itself. But ultimately, when you bring that into this mechanism of, draw mechanics, it really stands. It should stand the test of time as well, and relate to that. People can, trust that they're entering into a draw that's provably fair and verifiable as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Like the first draw will take place on the 21st of January. So it's coming up pretty quickly. So it's something that, hopefully you'll have a look at and hopefully participate in. But will we mention this 21% partner program as well, Chris, just to...
Yeah. I think it's very high in terms of percentage for a partner program that we've seen. Usually people who work alongside a company like this, may get 5, 10%, maybe 12% at a time. 21 obviously fits with the brand. So basically what we're doing is, if you sign up as a partner for us and you share your link, which is extremely easy to do, you can generate your own link. Like it's basically going to be 21stacker.com/whatever you want. You share that with somebody, they buy a ticket, you get 21% of whatever purchases they make on those tickets. So if they bought $100 worth of tickets, you get $21 for that. So yeah, it's very very generous, and it's also, I don't know if you want to touch on this about the lifetime commission as well, for a certain number of people, which means that any future ticket that they purchase, you also get rewards. So it could be monthly income for people. We do pay out on the first of every month, and we pay that out in sats to your Lightning network as well, Lightning wallet as well. Unless it's a large, substantial purchase, we'll be doing it on chain. But yeah, anything to add on that?
Yeah, and that's the concept as well. Again, this is all Lightning. This is all Lightning native based on Bitcoin. There's no fiat payments on this. It's all to your Lightning address. So it's the 21% lifetime commissions. We're doing this for the first 500 partners. So for every successful referral, that be tracked to that customer's registration, so their email address. So if they sign in the future with the same email into their same account and purchase a ticket, that will be linked back to you again, to your 21% commission. So that's for lifetime. So it's not just a one-off thing, which is quite a good thing, that a lot of companies don't offer generally. But again, it's based around the Bitcoin ethos and that network effect, that we wanted to use the community to grow this as well, and to provide an extra option for people to actually help onboard other people as well. It gives them an incentive to go and say, here, try this out, jump on, look at this site, here's my referral link effectively. So you can go and share that out with people if you wish to. And we've kind of thought around this as well over the last few weeks of, like, being our first draw. This is, trying to get people onboarded onto the draws and trying to get people onto something that's very new. It's Bitcoin based and it's based on a draw platform mechanism. Naturally, people will be skeptical around that, as you should be from a Bitcoiner point of view as well. But we want to give people that experience of entering the draw. So we've decided as well for the first 500 partners to come on board with this to register. When you register, I'll actually share the registration page here quickly. It's just a matter of entering your details, email address, password, etc. So there's a box here for you to enter your email, or sorry, your Lightning address. So that Lightning address will be the address where commissions are paid to in the future. But ultimately, if you're coming on board first time, we're going to send your first entry as an entry credit to that Lightning address as well. So you can effectively enter the draw as a perk of registering as a partner. You can get into that first Genesis draw for your first entry via this entry credit, which will be free for you effectively. So it just gives an extra little bit of an incentive if you want to try it and test it out and experience the draw process to see how seamless it actually is. and how engaging and effective it is. But there's a bit of information there again on that partner about the 21% program. Feel free to have a little look, and again, reach out if you want to at any point if you have any questions around that. But yeah, it's an interesting project for us that we've developed, and it's based around our experience over the last year or so, just talking to people, with individuals, business owners, and thinking around a slightly different kind of outside the box approach to getting people involved and using Bitcoin on a more kind of not a mainstream platform concept, but it's a concept that many people do interact with across, especially UK, Ireland, but also globally. So it's a kind of familiar mechanism for many people to use, but using it with Bitcoin and Lightning only will be a slightly new concept for many. But it's important to increase onboarding and Bitcoin adoption, we feel, from this angle.
Yeah, and I think just one last thing to finish up before we get under 2026 and beyond conversation around Bitcoin to wrap up. But yeah, this is one of many that we'll bring to Bitcoiners and trying to build out this ecosystem. So Emerge21 is the education platform, the consultancy platform, but we want to build out a multitude of products. Now, it does take a while to build out a product, and we'll build out more use cases, whether it's store value use cases, more Lightning based applications and products. We'll continue to do this. This was started off as a side gig. We've put a lot of effort in it, made it quite robust. It's been fun doing it and a lot of learning. And we're very happy with how it turned out. But this will be one of many, and we'll continue the journey on bringing more Bitcoiners and more people to Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, interesting. It's been an interesting few months. And it's you start off, with various ideas and projects and business ideas, and you develop things out, and things, you pivot into certain directions and different things. And we didn't think at the outset of creating Emerge21 that this would be something we'd potentially be developing. But ultimately, when you see, again, demand and potentially routes to onboard people in very different and innovative ways, it's just a different concept from your traditional education only platform. But yeah, we kind of want to act as more of an incubator for people as well, for individuals, companies that are maybe thinking of utilizing Bitcoin. And again, you can integrate Bitcoin into your business as a payments mechanism, but if you try to build concepts and projects on Bitcoin, that's a totally different thing, which is, something, that's an angle that we're kind of looking at exploring more as well in the future. But for now, yeah, we're in 2026 obviously now. So what's going to happen over the course of the next year, Chris? What's Bitcoin going to do?
Yeah, well, I suppose from a Emerge21 perspective, you hit the nail on the head there. And I'm hoping that we can get another product out by the end of the year, because that is the way to drive adoption. It is about moving away from the fiat system overall, and showing that this setup, this ecosystem, this framework of Bitcoin is already set up to be your store of value for savings and your medium of exchange. So that's not going to change, and that's the most exciting thing. I think even if we do have a bear market as to tag it this year, and it's another red year, and we've got two red years in a row, what happens is that passionate Bitcoiners go out and they build more products, they build better products, they try and drive that adoption, because it's a passion that you have when you see Bitcoin and you see the world that it can bring for people, and how much better it can be. In terms of maybe price over the next couple of years, I don't tend to do price predictions that much, but I can only see positive outcomes for Bitcoin, both at the, as I say, the ecosystem level, but as your store of value, I think it's going to prove to be the ultimate store of value. It's going to crush gold, it's going to crush silver, it's going to crush every stock known to man. AI is interesting, no doubt about it. There could be a bit of a bubble going on there, even though it is very effective in what it's doing. There's always a limitation, maybe a pullback. When I say that, it's kind of, I'm relating it to the dot-com bubble. Everybody was right about the internet in the 1990s. Everybody got carried away in the year 99, 2000. It popped, but it came roaring back then in 2005, which is a kind of interesting anecdote to where we're at today. I think everybody's right. AI is going to be massive. We might be getting over our skis in terms of how well we think it's going to do. It's going to take away everybody's job, and we're going to be in a utopia in 2-3 years' time. I don't think that's the case. A lot of investment has gone towards AI at the moment. I think we'll see some pullbacks maybe in that area over time. I think gold and silver are very interesting, but I think they could also pull back in the short term. Um, but I think ultimately this is the most scarce asset in the universe. It is built for this scenario. It is built for the digital era. It is built even for an AI era, especially in an AI era. So again, I know I'm always bullish in this in the long term because I know what it is. So that's my kind of overview then of the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, again, the foundations of Bitcoin are unchanged. They haven't changed. They won't change. It's fixed, fixed finite supply asset, and that's one of the main concepts to really keep in mind, especially with all the chaos and uncertainty and noise out there. But so with my prediction, it's not a price prediction because again, I don't really do that myself. Again, I try to simplify it. One Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. It's a long-term savings mechanism, and but I think predicting what's happening, more and more people will be building with Bitcoin, building on Bitcoin, and that's a good thing. That's what needs to be done from my point of view, and again from a business point of view as well. More small businesses, private companies, bigger corporations will be adopting it, and we'll be trying to integrate it as a payment mechanism, which is probably the first step as a business, but ultimately then knowing that adopting it as a balance sheet asset is one of the most important things you can do as a small business specifically, again, over the long term as well. And it's just going to grow over that period. But there are now, like if you look at the amount of Bitcoin adoption within like merchants across the globe, like that is growing as well, more and more month on month. And you can see that, BTC maps, etc. You can see that online, and that's healthy. And I suppose just again encouraging anybody to go and support those businesses as well. Just go and try to spend sats with a Bitcoin accepting merchant Bitcoin business in your local economy or beyond if you're traveling, and just growing the network. And it's about growing the network. Again, what we're doing with Emerge21 with this 21Stacker project as well. It's all about network adoption, network growth, and as a community network, a community-based Bitcoin's community is strong. If you attend any Bitcoin events, which I encourage anybody to do over the course of the next year, if you can attend a local event or beyond, you really meet lots of amazing people that are trying to do, good in the world. And it's a really healthy community to be involved in. So just participating in those kind of things as well, and just growing on Bitcoin. And I think the prediction, the more it grows, the stronger it gets, the bigger it gets, the more decentralized it gets. And the better our future is
Yeah.
overall. So
That's
yeah.
it. Yeah, the one thing we didn't really touch on there as well is that like there's two things converging at the same time. There's the rise of Bitcoin, but there's also the destruction of the fiat system. And it is like it's fragile, it's fracturing, it's weak. At the minute, you can see what's going on with the Japanese markets. Lots of debt within the global powers at the moment, and they're not able to grow their way out of it. Again, hoping for a productivity miracle out of AI. I don't think that's gonna. I think it's gonna give them a productivity lift, but I don't think it's gonna. It isn't possible to get out of the debt that's there at the moment. Yeah, just anyway, in general, the fiat system is going to implode at some stage. It's unsustainable. But yeah, if you want to wrap up there.
Yeah, no, it's we'll leave it at that. It's, quite a long episode. We thought we'll do half an hour. It's probably turned into like an hour near enough. But no, it's there's just lots of stuff going on, and I think it is. It's just keeping in contact, keeping involved. We'll try to put out again as much content. It's been tricky this last few months because we've been, I say, distracted by certain things. But it's pushing forward Bitcoin adoption in the long term. That's what our kind of drive is: just educate more people, to get more people involved, in a very kind of transparent and clear way. So yeah, have a look. Basically, have a wee look. Yeah, 21stacker.com. Go there, have a check, have a play around the site, see what you think, and feel free to, if you want to register as a partner, or if you want to enter the draw. That first one's the 21st of January. So no matter how many people are in the draw, there's a maximum cap, but ultimately, the draw will take place on the 21st of January, and that's through part of our transparency mechanism as well. But yeah, other than that, we'll wrap up there, sure, and leave it. And we'll again try to get more guests on in the coming months as well. Just going back to the kind of normalized format and just getting as more kind of perspectives and information from other Bitcoiners and non-Bitcoiners that are maybe just becoming new to the Bitcoin space from a business owner perspective and individual perspective as well. So that's it for the start of 2026. We'll wish everybody a happy new year, and hopefully we'll see how Bitcoin performs over the next year. But in any case, Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and it will do what Bitcoin does, and you can be, rest assured that that will continue. So overall, that's it, Chris.
All right. Thanks.
Okay,
Good catching up again, Alan.
good man. Chat soon.